All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining again this week here in 24. Happy New Year. We'll start with that. Thanks for getting on board so early in the year. This week we're going to talk about building an employee development plan. Obviously this is a huge requirement for every business. I think, at the end of the day, a business is really nothing more than its employees and its customers. And so this week we're going to talk about how to kind of evolve the team that you have. And so often, we get through the holiday season and we come into January. We've usually got some time in the landscape business, which is great, to kind of focus on creating improvements in the business. And I think myself over the years, one mistake that I made for many, many years was really just to start thinking about systems and processes that were missing instead of thinking about, what was missing in terms of skills and whatnot within the team. And I think when you really take a step back and think more about the people, then the processes become a little bit more clear over time. So I'm going to talk about a system today to help kind of craft a little bit better order to things, at least some things that I found worked a little bit better when kind of trying to grow people. And ultimately, this career development plan that we're going to talk about is kind of focused on really identifying roles and clarifying what they are in your company so that you can create career ladders and a system of creating some upward movement. And then kind of coupling all of that clarity in the business with a pathway and a training system and a set of sort of methods that you can use in the business to really set goals and then measure and continuously improve. So I'm going to kind of talk through that over the next half hour together. So getting started with just kind of understanding how to, first off, identify roles. I think it's always wise to create an org chart. And this is really something that most landscape companies don't take enough time to do. I think it's a really valuable sort of first step in creating a career development system for your business, because ultimately you want it to be sort of visual for everybody. And I think even as the owner, I know myself over the years, often found myself just scribbling out variations of org charts that might help drive more efficiency or allow me to create a lot more accountability throughout the company so that I kind of knew who to talk to about different things without adding all kinds of layers of management. And that's something that I see really often when I'm teaching budgeting workshops is I see companies that are trying to layer in too many layers of management and not really solving the problems that they've got by filling the skills gaps that they've got in the business. So they're just adding people rather than, maybe upskilling the people that they have or really solving the issues with a combination of training and standard operating procedures and standardized systems and processes to drive more efficiency and accountability throughout the company. So as you build out that org chart, every company is going to be a little bit different. This is purely just an example. Obviously, every company is different. And for that reason, every company needs their own. And in my experience, I always tried to keep the org chart fairly flat in the sense that I don't want to create a lot of middle management positions that are not actually producing work or adding value. So minimal overhead with really high achieving crew leads that can really manage their crews more efficiently on their own because you've actually invested in upskilling them and creating people that really understand how the company makes money and how to be more efficient. And so we'll talk through that a little bit more here. So getting started with that org chart, I think the first step is really finding those key roles and opportunities in the business and surfacing them so that everybody understands what really lies ahead. If they're joining the company as a first-year apprentice, how do they sort of transcend or climb the ladder to unlock more opportunity for themselves. And of course, you as a leader in the landscape industry need to surround yourself with people with that mindset. I think in too many landscape companies, there's a big gap there, in the sense that people leave because they don't really understand that there is a career to be had. And whether you're a small company just getting started or a more established company, I think there is a lot of upward opportunity, because companies just continue to evolve. And so there shouldn't really be a glass ceiling in most landscape businesses, because you can always be adding more crews, more projects, more contracts if you've got the talent. And so what I've seen, and I've experienced it myself, adding too much work without adding the talent or adding the people with the skills to really manage it just doesn't work. And I think the great companies are always evolving the people, and therefore opportunities just keep coming their way because they've got the capacity to handle it. I think a great place to start is definitely job descriptions. Lots of companies have pretty clear titles, but not really clear job descriptions. And job descriptions kind of set you up for success, in the sense that once you create a job description, you can layer in years of experience, different skills, and sort of a career pathway. And I think that really allows you to use apprentices as a job description versus laborer. I'm a big fan of apprenticeship. I think if you take somebody and you bring them into the company as an apprentice, they're more likely to stay for a number of years and really upskill and become either an incredible key contributor in the field, or maybe a supervisor of some sort, or a manager, or potentially even a partner in the business, who knows. The job descriptions, I think, need to be very specific. And again, if you're using LMN, we've got some templates in the forms library that you can use to get started with. They're just templates. They're downloadable. You can customize them, add your logo, make them your own. We've got some basic requirements and conditions and descriptions of the jobs, and you can add to them and definitely fill in all the details that apply more to your company. This is just an example here. You might have like a landscape technician as a main role, but if you're going to hire people, you might want to just call that apprentice landscape technician, and then have a year 1, 2, and 3. And I think standardizing the wages makes a really big difference, and it has a huge impact on people's sort of motivation to move to the next level or stick around from year to year, but also do the training, in the sense that you don't move from apprentice year 1 to 2 or 3 without serving the time out in the field doing the work and learning, but also doing the training to support the fact that you've also got that background information to move to the next year. So it kind of builds a lot of accountability on the apprentices to do their training and get their sort of hours of work each year. So the job descriptions allow you to really create the clarity and set the expectations for those that are really looking for a career in this industry. And so kind of moving on to process, what we're going to talk about here is really creating like a system of doing this in a repeatable way year in and year out. So I'm going to share a process that I believe is very useful in kind of developing staff like this, but the systems and processes, the forms and documents and training tools are all in the LMN Forms library and in the Greenius training platform. Skills gap analysis, I think this is a great place to start. We kind of identify all of our employees, what role they're in at the moment, build out some job descriptions, and then I think go to work on creating the skills gap analysis with and for each employee to understand, how they perceive themselves and what gaps they perceive themselves having, but also each crew supervisor or manager in the company or owner in smaller companies is also doing that skills gap analysis, and then sort of coming together to build a plan to really evolve each employee in the best way possible to kind of help them achieve their goals or sort of reach the next step, particularly if they are in an apprenticeship program. And so filling the gaps, I think, is obviously the outcome. This is what we're looking to achieve. The skills gap analysis is just a way of us understanding exactly what we're looking to fill. And so as we perform the skills gap analysis, it's just a tool, again, downloadable form that we've created that you can work through, again, from the manager side and the employee side, then review them together. You're going to kind of review all of the gaps that you've mutually come up with, and then talk about how to fill them. Could be training in greenness. It could be manufacturer training. You know, there's paver companies that have great training programs. There's landscape lighting. There's swimming pool installations, all kinds of manufacturer training. And then in greenness, we've built out a huge library of training as well. And then you can also build some of your own training courses right within greenness as well to try to fill some of these gaps. But training comes from many, many different sources. And at the end of the day, if we don't do a skills gap analysis, we don't know what gaps to fill or what training to really assign to each employee. So it's kind of like a foundational piece in this planning process. And so I think skills gap analysis can be used at two levels, one for the individuals in the field, and then also one for each team or department, or even at the company level. Today, obviously, we're just talking about individuals, but I think ideally this is the crew leader that is responsible for doing this for the employees that report to them. And then it would be an owner or manager that's doing these skills gap analysis for the field crew leaders themselves, crew supervisors, or whatever title you happen to use. And so here what we're trying to do is assess what skills are needed in order for them to continue to climb the career ladder. So we want to see what we have to add in order for them to take on a new job or just move to the next level within the job that they're at. Obviously here, what we're always trying to do is figure out how to get that sort of skill in the best and most suitable way. But what we're trying to do is really understand what can we fill with training and the people we have versus, maybe sometimes we just have to actually hire in some new skills. If you're looking to add something very specific like a swimming pool installation crew or a masonry crew, and you don't have that skill anywhere in the company, it's time to hire. But if you've got people that are in the company who already have those skills, managing the work day to day, it's just important to have them identify what gaps the people have that report to them so we can sort of fill those gaps in a more mindful way. And so I think as we kind of go through that process, we uncover what's needed. The next step, I think that's kind of important in working with the employees is to create some really clear goals for each employee. So using the SMART goal setting system, which is widely used, obviously, what we want to do here is just create goals that everybody can understand and goals that each employee in the company understands for themselves, and then they are held accountable to. So the goals need to be specific. They need to be very measurable. We want to set them so that they're achievable, but not too easy to achieve. So maybe a slight stretch is okay in cases. We want to make sure that the goal is really relevant to that specific employee at the individual level. And then, of course, we want everything to be time bound. So if it's going to be project-based or monthly or quarterly or yearly goals, we want to make sure that they're really clear on when we expect to achieve these goals and then how often we're going to report on them. So I'm going to kind of run through a system that'll help you do that. So just a few examples here for individual desired outcomes. If we're setting goals for the company, they're going to look very similar to this. If we're setting goals for a department, they're going to look similar. This is us now taking it down to the construction crew leader, to one crew lead. And then again, I'd like to do the same for each employee that reports up to this crew leader. So basically, all of our goals at the company level are cascading down throughout the company so that everybody knows what they need to do. And basically, the sum of all of these parts is going to equal the whole result for the company. So crew sales, in this case, in this example, would be 500,000. with a 12% profit. We can't set a top line goal without a bottom line goal. So those go hand in hand. We're going to identify their key metric, which is revenue per hour. When it comes to revenue, we want them to understand this. And I really think it's a great exercise to teach all of your crew leaders how to budget and also how to estimate, because as they get better at estimating, they'll always be able to optimize revenue per hour. And I think they become much better field installers when they understand how to price work and what success actually looks like. As we add each additional crew member, we want to identify that in these goals. It's a big deal to hire one more person and add them to a crew. So that's going to be a goal for the year. Improving efficiency, increasing change order revenue, really making that a metric that people pay attention to, because otherwise I think we give away a lot of small extras along the way. Obviously safety, improving customer satisfaction, setting a warranty budget or a cost of warranty for the coming year, making sure that they're using the technology properly that you've decided to use to run the company. In this case, hopefully you're using LMN or you're thinking of it, and making sure that people are using the training system that you've invested in, and really making sure that the crew is 100% committed to doing that training. And again, this should be the role of that construction crew leader to make sure this is happening. Gathering the information and the feedback, that's going to come from the owner, from the management team, from the finance department, depending on the size of the company. It's going to come from somebody above the construction crew leader. They're just using that information to drive the right behaviors and really sort of level up the team day to day and remind them of what needs to be done. So again, the skills gap analysis is going to help us understand then what we need to do to actually sort of unlock these opportunities. And as we sort of move through this program, we're going to make sure that we've got a process in place where this happens on an ongoing basis. And again, I'm a big believer in calendaring. I think if you calendar these things and you really schedule this out for the whole year, and that's something that you should be doing right now. I spent actually just my morning calendaring or reviewing my calendar for the whole year with my chief of staff for that reason. This is something that you have to do. You have to really figure out exactly what it is that we're going to do throughout the year, how often, and then we're going to build these recurring meetings so that we just do the things that we know we need to do to lead to the results that we're looking for in the business. And so this process here is, I think, a good starter for most companies to build a individual development process that's really going to make sure that we're focused on developing people. But it's only going to happen if you actually create the recurring meetings and the recurring time for everybody to actually get these things done. So start of the year, we want to create a crew budget. I'm going to talk about that next week. I'm going to explain crew budgets at a high level in 30 minutes, but we are also going to have crew budgeting workshops virtually throughout the winter for you and your teams to come and build crew budgets with our team. So live 4-hour crew budget workshops where everybody in your company that manages work can build their own. We want to do the employee reviews. We want to go through that skills gap process that I just talked about. We want to set up Greenius training. We want to make sure that we've got job descriptions. We want to do standard operating training, standard operating procedure training on an ongoing basis, but we definitely want to kind of kick the year off right. If you've got an incentive program, you're going to want to review that. And then I think on an ongoing basis, creating some recurring training for some key systems and processes to really drive efficiency deep into the organization. Using Greenius to do this, you can implement the 5S system, which is a waste elimination system. Teach people how to eliminate waste and then talk about it frequently and report on it frequently. And that whole system is built into your forms library as well, along with training courses in Greenius for your staff to get up to speed and do the training. independently. And we've also got some YouTube training tools as well for some company meetings. On the project and contract side, I think having really defined ways of managing projects is a huge component of the individual development process. And I think a lot of companies really overlook the way that they start and manage projects and provide feedback on an ongoing basis. They overlook this and they don't see it as a training component, but it really is. I think if you're looking to really upskill your team, they have to understand all of the details of a project. And then they have to understand when you're winning and when you're not, and what's going well and what isn't. And they have to be involved in planning labor and material and equipment. And they have to learn how to sequence a job and think ahead and really understand where they should start and where they should finish and how to manage everything in between. I think the way that we start jobs, the way that we provide feedback on crew budgets, the way that we identify all of the key responsibilities within those job descriptions, creating some monthly reports where people can see how they're trending on projects, on year-to-date revenue goals, safety goals, all of those sort of goals that we set in that SMART planning process. And then, using some really simple systems like the daily 4 o'clock 4 system, and a monthly crew meeting to just kind of maintain that ongoing feedback loop where people really do understand how the jobs are going, estimated versus actual hours, how the job costs are trending year to date. All of this information is available at the click of a mouse if you're using LMN to its full potential. If you're using invoicing, if you're using LMN Crew, all of this information is right there in the LMN reports. We weren't always able to say that, but I'm sure happy to be able to say that now. The place that LMN is at right now from an analytics perspective is just mind-blowing if you're using it to its full potential. And if you're not, make sure that you get involved with us over the next couple of months, get the training, and really deploy it so that all of these monthly reports can actually be used the way they're intended to be used. Because I think that's what drives the improvement in a company, is that transparency and that ability to really give meaningful feedback to the employees, but also for owners and leaders in the company to just know when things are actually going really well versus maybe not going as planned. It takes a huge amount of stress off when you know how great something is, or even when you know how bad it is. In my experience, not knowing was a lot more stressful than just knowing. I'd always know if something wasn't going well before I'd look at the metrics. But once I looked at the metrics, I'd know exactly how bad it was, and then I could form a plan to make it better. And I think getting more feedback creates that improvement cycle that we're looking for. And it really helps you identify the gaps that you need to fill with systems and processes and training and people and tools and all these things that we often think of first. And I think when we're not looking at metrics, we're just kind of guessing, and we end up sort of fixing things in the wrong order. So the way that we manage those projects really sets us up for a lot more success when it comes to doing quarterly reviews and year-end reviews, where we're giving a lot more feedback based on metrics, based on actual numbers, and then really kind of always creating more opportunity for training, more upskilling, more awareness of what success looks like. And I think that really creates a better engagement at the end of the year when we're doing a staff review and we're issuing things like bonuses and updating job descriptions and identifying training plans for the winter months. We definitely want to make sure that people understand why we make decisions. And I think with more transparency, that becomes a lot more natural. So obviously, we've got a lot of industry training within Greenius, and we've been very busy building more analytics dashboards, building career pathways so that you can hire apprentices and run them through the Greenius apprenticeship program that'll be launching here in Q1. And really, developing courses on your own to really sort of customize the training to be more suitable for your company. As it comes to creating all of this feedback and getting the engagement in training, I think step one, before you even start getting people to do training, is to give them some feedback, because I think people are more likely to do their training when they understand that they're trying to fill a gap or really drive improvement in one specific area. I think just, letting people loose and telling them to start doing training without a proper understanding of why they're training or what the outcome's going to be, I think is a major problem in most businesses, but I think it's definitely a big issue in the landscape business, because often many of our field workers have not had a lot of training or career development in their career. They're either young workers or they've come from, some low skilled industries where there wasn't a lot of training. And landscape industry is still very much one of those industries, being honest. So the 360 feedback tool that we have in Greenius is designed to give this feedback sort of loop. And what that is the employees get polled and we find out how they're feeling about the company and their supervisor or the department leader. And then also we find out how the company is sort of feeling about the employee. And so when we do this, I think both the employer and the leaders in the landscape company are learning what they need to change in a more discreet way, obviously, because employees are not going to come right out and tell you each day what they'd like to see change. Or you might not know whether or not there's a high level of trust, or you may not know what the culture is actually feeling like in the workplace. And so these questions are going to help you. But then the employees can get feedback along the way as well about everything from their overall performance to something very specific. Is something as specific as a brand new apprentice just getting some feedback on whether or not they know how to use a blower or a trimmer or a mower properly. It could be something very specific or more macro, and it'd be their whole year. And so these performance reviews can be done as often as you like. I really think that quarterly for overall performance, and then more specific for each type of skill that they might be just unlocking. And so as they start doing more and more performance reviews, the training becomes a little bit more I would say engaging, in the sense that they realize they're trying to fill a void and they're trying to sort of unlock the next step in that journey. So with Greenius, you can obviously track training. So when people are taking their training and when they're not. You can track all of the tailgate sessions that the crews have been doing so that you build your due diligence. In the case that there's ever an accident, you can prove that you've been doing weekly training. You've got a full training program for both safety and skills. And of course, you can make sure that people are actually doing their training to unlock that next opportunity. You can build your own courses now with Greenius. So we've got the Greenius courses, which is a huge library. There's a couple hundred courses in the library. But then in addition to that, you can build your own. And this is pretty important. We decided to build this program because I know personally how important it is to have your own individualized training. And so I spent millions of dollars building an online training program for my own landscape company about 10 years ago. And I thought, when we decided to acquire Greenius and bring it into LMN as a product of LMN, I thought that the key thing would be to build a tool where people could shoot a short video, upload it to YouTube or Vimeo, embed that into Greenius, and then build a course around it, or add your own PowerPoint slides and build a course around it. Could be anything really. But these would be things like new hire welcome videos. This would be things like, training your staff to utilize new standard operating procedures that you might deploy in the company, or changes to systems and processes that you have had for years. Sometimes we have to evolve things as time goes on. Could be site specific, in the snow business in specific, we need site specific training, we need skills training, how to use the equipment, whether it's plowing or de-icing or specialty equipment that you might have if you're getting into using liquids and salt application rates, all these types of things. And then, could be just very specific things that you want to teach people how to do, like your pre-plowing inspection on your truck and your post-plowing cleanup and inspection on the truck. Could be just about anything. But ultimately, I think as you build these courses, you really sort of start to systemize things in your business and eliminate the need for a lot of meetings. People can learn and take these courses on their own. And then, the information is more natural when it comes to doing the hands-on learning out in the field. These courses you can also use for company announcements. A lot of our customers are using these courses just to reduce meeting times and create, weekly announcements, weekly sort of meetings that you can deploy and assign to all employees and see whether or not they've actually attended. And so it's a great way to kind of systemize company meetings without having everybody standing around at the shop on a sunny Monday morning when ideally they'd be out producing work. And again, a lot of companies are actually having their staff do this training on site or while driving from site to site if they're maintenance crews, or to and from the job site for construction crews. Often we're paying people to sit in trucks. It's pure downtime. We can kind of convert that time into learning time. So I'll take a few questions here in a minute, but just before I get to that, I just want to let you know about a few things that we have happening coming up. So next week, as I said, I'm going to kind of take this to another level, and we're going to start to talk about how to create crew budgets. And that really does become the foundation for a lot of the feedback loop that I was describing earlier. Once you've got a crew budget, it becomes much easier to give people monthly reports, let them know how they're tracking against the plan, utilize LMN crew and the LMN job costing analytics to really give people that feedback that they're truly looking for to see what success looks like. So this is a key foundational item. I'm going to cover it at a high level next week, and then we're going to have these follow-up workshops. So hopefully you can join us for both. Snap a picture of that QR code or hit that website link, and you can find everything you need to know there. And then if you haven't already attended one, I did, I think, 14 sessions this past fall. These are 2-day mastermind sessions. What we really kind of focus on here is how to grow revenue and profit, how to grow your people to really support that growth, and, really finding ways to improve the business on a sort of macro level from a perspective of like safety, quality, and efficiency. And so we go really deep into developing people and, using systems and processes to really sort of unlock the true potential of the company. And so we use a workbook. We don't use software at all during the 2 days. It's really just strategic planning. And so we sort of unpack a plan using a workbook. And then along the way, we refer to the software and the forms and whatnot and the training programs that we have to help fill in those blanks. So it kind of gives you your operating system or your strategy for the coming year. Backed by popular demand, these prior to COVID, we had a few training centers set up, and unfortunately we had to close those during COVID. This year, what we decided to do is go on the road. And so I think we've got 12 weeks of 5-day training. These are certification programs for your employees that use LMN. These are more like systems admin, anybody that would work in finance or an operations manager, designers, estimators, anybody, accountants, salespeople, anybody that's using LMN on a day-to-day basis to manage anything from budgeting, estimating, scheduling, time tracking, invoicing, billing, training, all of these different components. So what we do is kind of help you tech enable your business over the course of the week. We sort of show you what the software is designed to do, and we kind of help people make some changes in business to kind of adapt to be more prepared for operating that way. So it's a bit of software training, or a lot of software training with a little bit of business training, I should say. Again, one last big event to announce. We've got the Landscape Mastermind Summit, February 20th to 22nd. It's $795 per person. We'll be holding this in Orlando again at the Omni Resort in Champions Gate in February. And we've got an amazing list of speakers. It's going to be super exciting. It's basically 2 big days of education. And then on the first evening when you arrive, we have a reception. And then on the 4th day, there's an option to take part in a few other things that we have in store for people that are joining us. So again, hopefully you'll join us at this exciting event. It's been a few years since we held this. It was also on hold due to COVID, but we're excited to host this event again. It brings out an amazing group of people, and hopefully you can make it. So with that, I'll take a few questions, and I think we've got lots of time. So what do we have there, Brittany?
I have 2 questions. There's been a lot of conversation in the chat as well, but some of the Element team members have really jumped in to help out with that. But there's 2 here in the tab that specifically haven't been answered yet. So Chris was asking, but it might be a little off topic, but are there any standards in terms of how many crews an operation manager should be expected to manage, in our case related to maintenance?
Yeah, that really does vary a lot company to company. And I get that question quite a bit when we're doing in-person training. It's easier to answer when there's a little bit of a two-way dialogue, but I think upskilling each crew leader as much as possible so that they can really work independently allows you to minimize that ratio as much as possible. Kind of take a lot of the stress off of the operations manager, in the sense that I don't think an operations manager should be kind of running around putting out all kinds of small fires. I think they should be focused on the major problems in the business. And so, generally, I think depending on the crew size, depending on the nature of the work, that varies a lot. If it's commercial landscape work, for example, it tends to be pretty repetitive, where if it's really sort of high-end residential, there's a lot more variation to the work. There's often a lot of demands from the customers and a lot of things that are popping up throughout the year. So it does vary quite a bit depending on the mix of work. But, generally speaking, I think that ratio of operations, 5 to 7 crews, I think is pretty reasonable per operations manager. But again, it's a bit of a vague answer, but it's just there's so much variation in the industry and the type of companies and clientele that companies service.
Okay, great. And lastly, Julie was asking, I think this was a bit earlier on in the presentation, are you suggesting that labor rates are open and shared versus old school of not disclosing what others make?
Yeah, personally, I think having a standardized wage program is a great tool in many ways. I think it is super motivational for people to move to the next level. And I think if at all of the key positions, they have set wages, all of the defined positions, I should say. And then in the crew leader roles and the management roles, I think those wages can be more negotiated based on the book of business or the size of the revenue target that they're managing. And so I think up to a manager level or a crew lead level, it should be standardized. And I think it makes it very motivational for people to kind of transcend throughout their apprenticeship up to that level of a leader.
Okay, perfect. That's it from the questions.
One more thing to add there is it's transparent anyway, whether you want it to be or not. The reality is the employees all share what they make. On the crews, when one employee gets a wage, the first thing they do is tell everybody else on the crew. They're proud that they got the wage. And personally, I think it would be easier just to have the wage rates on the board when somebody moves to the next level, announce it company-wide and celebrate it. I think it's very motivational, and it's great to celebrate people climbing the ladder. That's what career development's all about.
Okay.
Again, you got another one?
Yeah, I got another one where I guess a hot topic here. Colette was asking in that wage discussion, how do you feel about inflationary increase annually?
Yeah, I think having an annual increase is a healthy approach to things, and it has to be flexible in both directions, right? In years where we've experienced extreme inflation over the past few years, for example, the employees are going to need a much bigger lift, which means you've got to raise your prices. Not always popular with your customers, and you may lose a few, but at the end of the day, I think, you probably notice here at LMN, we give you a small bump every year. We also give our employees a bump every year. It's just the way it is. We have to charge a little bit more money each year in order to pay our staff more money. And landscape businesses, I think, sometimes are opposed to giving their residential customers a small annual increase, but I don't think that needs to be the way it is. I think we should give our employees annual increases that reflect inflation, and I think we have to charge our customers for it.
Fantastic. Okay. That was it.
Great. Well, thanks again for attending, everyone. And next week we'll be back to talk about crew budgets, and that really is an extension of this conversation. So hope you can make it. Thanks for joining. Appreciate you taking the time this week, and best of luck this year in 24.
Take care. Bye, everyone.